Yeah, well, I was a player for about 5 years, and then when I was 9, turning 10, I became a goalie and been a goalie ever since. Um, I played like high level AAA growing up. Bounced around junior for a bit. I played junior like in Ontario in Canada, then back home in Manitoba. Ended up doing 1 year of college out in like BC, like on the west coast of Canada, like college hockey, and then COVID happened, and some other things in my career happened as well. And then went over to Europe for 2 years playing over in Sweden, and now here we are back in what we call the Fed Zeno in Detroit.
And we are live, ladies and gentlemen, with Travis Rigden. Is the D silent?
Rigden.
Because I was just listening to you and Dave Wheeler on the Slang and the Biscuit podcast, and the way he pronounced it, I was like, maybe it's not exactly, because I was thinking Rigden, but it's Rigden.
Yeah, it's one of those last names that throws people for a loop. Like, ever since I was a kid, even in school, like people it always comes out different, and I kind of just embrace the mentality, like whatever comes out first, that works for me. It's just easier than arguing for 5 minutes about, actually, let me explain this to you.
Yeah, but I was listening to the podcast. It's really good. You and Dave Wheeler, I like it. He's got a very like radio voice, and then you fill in the gaps with your hockey. You're the number 33 for the Motor City Rockers.
Yes, sir.
And very cool. And how did you like start this podcast?
Yeah, so the podcast was, I'm assuming like your podcast and 3/4 of the other podcasts out there was a COVID endeavor of, I have nothing going on. I'm sitting around rotting in my apartment by myself.
Interesting. So
think about what can I do with my spare time, because I can't really do my vlog. Hockey's been shut down. And then also kind of like along the lines of like, I started understanding that like retirement will come from hockey. As much as I'd like to think I'm going to play till I'm 40, being, a big man at 6'5", the genetics aren't necessarily on my side to play until 40. So I should probably start sometime soon thinking about what am I going to do for retirement. And I always thought, I love talking, I love sharing stories and all this kind of stuff with people. So started a podcast, and the original version of the podcast, actually, you hopped on to help sponsor and work with a bit with my previous co-host, and things were, things grew a little bit, but they kind of got really like stalled in their progress. Like we never really hit our stride, and then kind of rebooted everything back in June. Came back in July with Dave, and funny enough, like Dave and I have been talking for a while. So Dave has like 20 years of radio experience in Winnipeg. He's had the top morning radio show for like 20 years. Like he had, I remember at one point he's having like 125,000 people listening live every morning to his radio show in Winnipeg. Like it's nuts how like he is literally a legend in the city of Winnipeg.
Yeah, you could tell just by listening to him talk. He has that radio voice, and he's been doing it for a while. He is definitely experienced in this game.
Very, very experienced. And like from my perspective, like I remember like my mom driving me to school when I was a kid, listening to Dave Wheeler, and now I do the podcast with Dave Wheeler. So like it's crazy, like in my mind, for it to kind of come around full circle like that.
That's really cool. I actually started mine. I was kind of just a Joe Rogan junkie and talk radio junkie. Like when I would ride to school or wherever I was going with my dad, he would be listening to talk radio in the morning. Not necessarily. Well, there was sports talk, but in politics, and I just was always into whatever they were talking about. I kind of liked it. And then when I turned 21-ish, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And I remember I went and knocked on the door of like a radio station because I wanted to be like a talk show host, or I had no experience. I just went and knocked on the door. And they didn't answer, and then I gave up. That was my effort for being a radio like personality or whatever when I was young. But I was definitely always kind of into it. And I know back in like 2012, around the time when I thought the world might be ending because the Mayan calendar was going to expire, and I was like, might as well do the things that you think you want to do. And like I did some stand-up comedy, and I started a podcast way back then, and I've been doing it on and off ever since then. So and now like this version the RPG Robert Patton Global podcast. It's been about 4 years. I think we're over 100 episodes now.
I gotta say, I love the background, the RPG Global in the background. That's going to be on the Christmas list for Dave and I to pick up in the new year. That looks fantastic.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Somebody made it for me. Is that your only Sheath shirt? Because I was wondering, we might need to get you a few more.
So I just got I got the brand new one that you guys sent about a month ago, but like this one, I've just been wearing the shit out of it for the last like year. Like it's to the point like where it's kind of starting to fade just a little bit, but I kind of like that because then it shows that it's not just like a new shirt I got from a company. It's one that I wear like religiously. My girlfriend, she gives me shit too. She's like, you know, you don't have to wear that shirt every time like you see me, like when we were hanging out in person, because obviously I haven't seen her in 2.5 months. And I said, but I like it. I like to represent Sheath, like the shirt itself. And she's like, just wear something different. And I was like, I like it. So her Christmas to-do list is to get me some clothes that aren't Sheath. So yeah.
I see it like on everything you do, and I mean you're constantly promoting, which is what you have to do. I think like by far your podcast is bigger than this podcast, even though I've been doing it for longer. And I kind of gripe about it, but you know, like UFC champion of the world, Brandon Moreno, James Krause, this guy who just got banned from the UFC. I had him on the podcast last year, and you know, best-selling authors. Now I have really great guests, and then sometimes it'll be like 30 views, and I only check YouTube. So we're also on, you know, Spotify and iTunes, but I never look at those numbers, so I don't know. I think we might be in the thousands, probably not. Overall, definitely, I actually have had over 100,000 downloads overall. So that was pretty cool. But that's over hundreds of episodes.
I've kind of found that, like I think we talked about this maybe a couple months ago, but like the TikTok clips and the reel clips, like those are like explosively growing the podcast. When like right now it feels like every clip that, you know, Dave and I post, like Dave doesn't do social media, so I do all the posting and stuff. But everything seems to hit like 100,000, 250,000, 500,000. Like we just had, you know, 2 clips hit like 1 million views the other day, and only got like 5,000 followers on Instagram page. So it's growing like crazy. And the TikTok clips are wild too.
Yeah,
it doesn't hurt when Dave's promoting the podcast and his morning show every morning, Monday to Friday. And then obviously because my vlog is very hot right now, and I tell people to come listen. So like we've grown it a lot. I think we're averaging not to, you know, have a pissing contest, but I think we're sitting right now between 5,000 to 8,000 every single episode collectively. So like
nice.
It's a lot, especially coming from back in June when, you know, I reached out to you to say, hey, I'm rebooting the podcast. Does Sheath want to come back on board? I think hovering around 1,000 and change. It was a very slow time too. So it's nutty right now.
That's a huge jump.
Very.
But that's commendable. 10,000 is, you know, or you know, you're pushing 10,000. That's not something to whatever. Like that's very significant, I think.
Yeah.
So it seems like you like doing it. I didn't know. So you have a vlog on your YouTube channel, right?
Yeah. So I got the vlog where I do my life in the Fed. So like life in the FPHL series, documenting the minors of pro hockey. Like on the podcast today, where I got a trade offer for my rights in exchange for, you know, steak dinner and a hotel stay for our team, which that happens a lot. There's actually, like, people think that, you know, stuff like this doesn't happen. It's just like made up. Like there's a guy who was traded for a team bus not too long ago. Like this stuff happens, right? They needed a team bus. They needed a starting left winger. So they made a deal and everything worked out. So like stuff like this happens all the time, like in the minors of pro hockey. So that's the vlog channel. And then obviously the podcast, which has become a byproduct of the vlog. And that's basically it. That's all I do.
And how many, I heard you talking about how tough it is to just be a pro hockey player, and the traveling, you get on the bus at like midnight and then you have to like sleep on the bus.
Yeah. So we have a bigger budget than I'd say half the teams in the league, but we're still on the like top of the league for budgets. So like the whole concept of pro hockey is like we're just trying to stay afloat, like trying to stay above water. Like we have a salary cap of like $4,000 a week to pay everybody collectively. Whoa. Now that's what we're supposed to pay, but I'd be lying if I said there wasn't guys being paid extra under the table. How much that is, I don't know. I have a hunch, but so like we're very tight on cash, right?
Yeah.
And so we leave like our bus trips when we go on the road, because we usually play Friday, Saturday, Sundays. So we'll leave Thursday at midnight, 10-hour, 11-hour, 12-hour, maybe like an 8-hour bus ride, depending on where we're going. And then when we get there, we skate right away. We get morning skate because coach doesn't want us to have bus legs and go to the hotel and be sluggish. But I guess I'll tell this story. This is actually, here's a Robert Patton global exclusive. This hasn't been on Sling the Biscuit or on the vlog yet, mostly because my team watches my stuff. I can't say certain things. But our first bus trip of the year, we're going to Watertown, New York from Detroit, Michigan, about a 10-ish hour bus ride. And I get in the bus at midnight. It's freezing. But in my mind, I'm thinking, like, they just picked the bus up from the depot. It's probably cold. They got to turn the heat on. It takes a while to kick in. It's an older bus. Everything will be fine. Well, God damn it, Robert. There is no heat on this bus.
Oh, my God.
And so vets sit at the back of the bus, rookies sit at the front, and depending on where you stack up is where you sit. So I'm sitting not at the front, maybe a little bit more towards the middle, but I didn't realize this when I picked my seat because we're not moving. There's a massive hole in the roof of the bus as we're going. So we got no heat. I got this massive hole. It's freezing outside going, 80 miles an hour, maybe I got 60 miles an hour down the highway, and I'm freezing. I'm absolutely freezing. And so they tell us for road trips, just bring your track suits, everything will be fine. And but I didn't. I brought, a couple sweaters, couple sweatpants, and thank God I did. So I bundled up. I have no blankets, no real pillows or anything, and I'm freezing. And I got like frostbite on my toes. I have like black, like my two big toes, like black. It's so cold. You can't get any heat. And so I got frostbite on my feet. My feet are so cold, they're warm, if you know what I'm talking about, like hypothermia. And we get there around 10, morning skate for 10:45. We skate for an hour and a bit. Back to the hotel. We get our team meal at the Olive Garden, all you can eat pasta, breadsticks, and soup, and a little bit of chicken parm. That's like the staple for our pregame meals. And go back to the hotel, have a nap, go back for the game. I'm scratched game one, so I'm not dressing for game one of the series. Game two, I come back into the lineup, and then our starting goalie gets into a fight, gets kicked out. I come in cold for my first appearance of the season, and we ended up winning 7-6. To get the first win of my North American pro career. I played in Europe the last couple of years, but first one in North America.
Congratulations. Yeah, I was looking at your stats, and you have like a high percentage of like not letting the puck go through into the net. What is that called?
Save percentage.
Save percentage, right. And it was like 80-90%. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it sounds good.
They're a little weaker. The stats, I like them to be a little bit better. You usually want to aim for like a 900 at least, like a 910. So I'm sitting 880 or whatever, and that's not to my standards.
That's not acceptable. But you got 3 trade offers recently. It sounds like.
So the 3 trade offers, it was one offer, team declined. They made another offer, they declined, and then the third one they declined. And there's some things that I can't talk about because like contractually they don't want us posting stuff online about certain things. But the hotel and the steak dinner, I was like, oh, that's not going to incriminate anybody.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean we sponsor this local soccer team, the Colorado Springs Switchbacks. We bought. Like they just got this brand new stadium. It's probably one of the nicest stadiums in the league. It's not quite the MLS, Major League Soccer, or I don't even know if that's what it's called, but it's like the step below.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen what's that show, Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso is like an HBO series about a minor league soccer team, and out of the UK. It's actually pretty funny. And they made the first 2 seasons, but in soccer, at least in the UK, if the minor league team wins the championship, it gets like pulled up to the major leagues, and then the lowest ranking team in the major leagues, like they swap places, so you can actually go from like a minor league organization to a major league organization. Anyways, this is a minor league, and that can't happen here, but it is a really cool stadium, and they made it to the playoffs this year. They made it to the championship, and then they lost against San Antonio. But like, are there levels to the hockey league?
Absolutely. Yeah, I saw the clip that you posted a while ago, like with the new SHEATH jerseys at the stadium. It looked like a very beautiful facility.
Yeah.
Also very familiar with the whole like relegation advancement play over in Europe because that's all they play for. There's no as you know. There's no trophies. It's just you go up, you make more money, you go down, you go broke. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think they should do that here.
That doesn't exist in North America. Like, we actually, I think maybe like 3 or 4 episodes ago, we talked about that in the podcast about like, could we do something similar? And the way that the system is set up, it doesn't really allow it. So like in North America, you'd have like the NHL, the AHL, the East Coast, the SP, and then where we are at in the Fed. And because there's so much affiliation, so like, we had 2 guys on our team last week get called up to the SP, and they're affiliated. So you couldn't really have advancement, because then you'd have us, if say we advanced, us competing against the team that has affiliation with us, and then it would just kind of like be messy, right? So doesn't really allow for that, as opposed to in Europe. It just, there's so much up and down every year.
I think that would make it much more exciting to follow these minor league teams, because in the hopes that they might make it to the MLS, and then we're as a sponsor, if they jumped up to the MLS and we have the deal where we're, we bought a corner of the stadium essentially through next year, and it's really cool to see, and I just would like them to go to advance. But that's not possible. So
it would be cool. It would be a scary kind of concept as an advertiser, because you have to be careful who you sponsor, because if they're good, you get more return on your money because they go up. But if they're terrible, it's like, well, we're going to go down, and you know what I mean? You're losing money.
Exactly. Yeah. And the money that these teams request, I mean, for a minor league, team, they gave me this jersey in the background here, trying to sell me to buy that spot on the jersey for $150,000, and I was like, we bought a corner of the stadium, we're already not getting a return on that investment for like a fraction of that cost, and you want me to spend 3-4 times what I'm already spending to get, so that we can be on the back of a jersey. I would want to be on the front of a jersey, and get like cool goal scoring reels. I was talking to you through text this week about getting reels, and you were mentioning earlier how much more play they get, and that's what we would want, is just like a cool reel of a guy scoring a goal, throwing his hands in the air, and then our logo in the background, getting all the glory. But we're on ESPN Plus, I guess, and the scoreboard is always covering our banner, which is annoying. So they promote, they'll be like, you're going to get all these views because we're on ESPN Plus, and it's going to get, push your brand out there more, and then it's always covered up. So it's not really we're not getting as much value as they tell you you're going to get.
Yeah, you didn't know the scoreboard was going to be there when you signed up for that ad placement.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm talking about the rolling one on TV, just like the little digital scoreboard.
Yeah, for sure. I was thinking you shouldn't have mentioned that, because I think I might have to up the prices on the SHEATH logos on my gear. I'm giving you front and back, not just back.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say though, the amount of comments that I've gotten from people that just say like how clean the SHEATH logos look on my gear, covering everything, like it looks flawless. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing that. You go above and beyond. You're actually one of our better promoters, and I rank them based on like effort and then results. But seeing how much you put us out there, it's like, okay, this guy's going full scale, like doing everything he can to promote us, because you have a smaller audience than a lot of the people we work with, just based on the nature of the sport you're in. And we have YouTubers that have millions of followers, and so you pay for numbers, but you also pay for effort. And then whether or not we can then take what you're doing and put it on our page, which is why I was talking to you about the reel, like having some kind of cool hockey related reel would be fun. But then I looked at your page, and you fucking put us everywhere. You're wearing that shirt everywhere. So
I know you see this. Look at how faded this is. This has been in the washing machine so many times. It's crazy.
That's a good shirt. It's a bamboo shirt. I don't want to talk too much about the product, but we stopped working with that company because they sent us some prototypes where the logo was peeling off, and then But it turns out they're not peeling off. Look, you've washed it hundreds of times. So last night I designed a new shirt for, because you've inspired me to have like everybody should be wearing our shirts all the time. And I actually designed that shirt to have it a little higher so that people could be wearing it in podcasts and see the logo. And you're doing exactly what I wanted to be done. So I appreciate that.
mean, it's kind of difficult because like the concept of promoting like Sheath underwear would be, if I'm doing a podcast, I can't just rip off my pants mid podcast. And also like if I'm talking to you on a podcast, I can't just like get up and, show you below the belt. So like the higher up logo worked perfectly when you sent this to me. And also like this shirt's been in washing machines in 3 different countries, 2 different continents, multiple apartments, multiple different laundry sizes, detergents, everything. And it's still kicking. So it's great.
It is a quality shirt. So actually we're going to go back to that company because I pulled our, business from them, and I'm like, actually these shirts are pretty good. So we're going to go back to that.
You know what? I don't know if we've ever talked about this before, but so I heard about Sheath for the first time. This probably would have been, I want to say October, maybe even September of 20. It was when you guys were working with Jesse James West. This is like when he was like very, very, very small. Like I think maybe 80,000 followers or subscribers, not even. Now obviously he's at 3 million and he's larger than life. But it was at that time. And I remember reaching out, kind of getting in touch, and I can't remember the lady's name, but she set me up with the demo package. We kind of went back and forth, and just like from then to now, like it's difficult to find companies that have a good product. And I know it's kind of working into a little bit of an ad pitch, but a company like with a good product, hard to find people that actually care. I mean, like the amount of major companies out there that they're just looking for return on sales. That's all they're looking for. They're not actually looking to like build brand or like build relationships.
Yeah.
And like at the same time, like you mentioned that you work with significantly larger people than me, which is very true. But at the same time, I'm also like I have a following, but I play pro hockey, and that's like my thing. So I'm not like a Jesse James West where this is like all I do 24/7. Like I have a job to report to, and I make videos about my job in a sense. So I figured I can't have the same time commitments or the same assets that he would have. So throwing like Sheath logos on my gear, that's like that's what I spend most of my time in, is in my gear.
Yeah,
up as much as I can to get the brand out there, and also like the live ad reads of us just me and Dave coming up with different terminology for Sheath and what to put in your sheath, and it's been entertaining. We finally came clean this week and finally said your dick and your balls in the pouch, but it's been months in the making for that.
Yeah, you kind of have to be clever in your way of wording, like protect the troops, or I call it an inverted kangaroo pouch for your Joey, and there's all these different metaphors for
your Joey.
Yeah,
we got a new one for next week though.
And I heard he was getting his wife some a Sheath bralette for Christmas, which was really cool. I was just listening. It's a great podcast. You guys are really entertaining.
You know what? As awesome as Dave is, his wife is also really awesome. Like, she's fantastic, and she actually, this is a true story. That so Dave and I have a lot in common. Funny enough, is that we both shoot significantly above our league. And Dave being like, he's married to a Playboy bunny model, a former Playboy model. Wow. Candace is fantastic. And Dave was saying that we got to get Candace modeling the underwear, or the booty shorts and the bralettes, and that'll do good for business for the female audience, because we do have a female audience, which is kind of weird. I didn't think we had any like females listening to our hockey podcast, but yeah, we got about 10%.
Wow.
Yeah, which is, it's crazy. I'm like, we're talking to women here, not just dudes sitting in their basement listening to a podcast. And also, like, I got a great woman, and she loves the package you guys got sent out to her, and she gave me a glowing review.
Good. We're actually redesigning it. My wife, she's like, doesn't like the thickness of the waistband, and so for 3 years she's been trying to create a new like a more comfort luxury line for the women, and it's almost ready actually after like 3 years of prototypes back and forth. And I just want to see her in the underwear, so I'm excited for that. And last night, one of my favorite this is, I don't know, we're just going wherever the conversation goes, but
yeah,
my favorite sock brand went out of business, and I was doing some research on them last night. They went bankrupt, owing the bank $2.5 million, and just went out of business. It's called Kane 11, Kane 11, and they're fitted socks, for your shoe size. I have small feet, and I hate having socks where the toes are longer than my feet, so, and you end up with, uncomfortable socks in your shoes. So like I have fitted socks, but the company went out of business, and I want to like pick up where they left off, because they have all these customers. I was going to their Facebook page, and people are like, "Oh, you were the best," and these were the best socks, and I loved them. So I want to kind of just like take their idea, which is fitted socks, which most brands, they're like kind of one size fits all, or maybe they'll have two different sizes, and then you have to take that. If it fits, it fits. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But that, and like undershirts, and then with this new women's line, constantly, trying to think of ways to innovate, I guess.
Yeah, sheath underwear and sheath socks. What a combination that would be for the holiday season 23.
Wouldn't it? It'd go. I was also scrolling through Facebook. I mean, I'm back on Facebook a little bit, and I got one of those memories from 12 years ago, and it said, "I just sold 3 pairs. It's about to be so on." And it was like probably like the first 3 pairs that we ever sold, and it was 2010, December of 2010, and here we are 12 years later, and it took 3 more years to end up doing this relaunch where we did a Kickstarter, and that's when in 2013, that's really when it kind of took off. But I was really tickled by seeing that comment, and I was like, how far we've come, but when did you decide you were going to go like full on in hockey, like give it everything?
Yeah, I've kind of always I've always loved hockey. Right? Like I started skating. Like my dad taught me how to skate when I was 4 years old. And that's actually an interesting story. I still remember. There's where I grew up. There's this rink maybe like 8 minutes away from the rink. It's this old, like you smell the propane. It is older. It's probably like a World War II, like that time frame arena. It's so old.
Whoa.
And I remember, like really old. And like when you walk into a rink, if you can smell the propane, the rink is around from that time. Because it's like embedded in the walls, and like it has a very unique smell to it.
What's the propane for then?
So the Zamboni runs on 2 propane tanks. So you have 2 propane tanks, and as one depletes and it runs out, you switch to the other one, and then that one they go back and forth. Now, most arenas have electric Zambonis, and they're very like precise. Like they cut the ice at the right length. It's a very like scientifically backed method. But a lot of the old rinks are just, some old dude in his 80s working the crank to like adjust the blade for like how much is going to cut off the ice or not. And then the propane cylinders as well. And then it just like dumps water on. It's very outdated by today's standards, but like this is the rink setup where I'm pitching for you here. So I'm 4 years old. My dad takes me out there, and when you're 4 years old, you can't skate. You usually like hold onto a chair. So I got my skates on. I'm holding this chair, and I'm pushing it around, and my dad's trying to teach me how to skate, and I'm crying, I'm screaming, I don't like it, it's not fun. And I tell my dad, I remember very distinctly, this is one of my earliest memories, was telling my dad, I don't want to do this anymore, this isn't very fun. And then after that, I started skating.
Oh, weird.
And here we are 22 years later, and I still haven't stopped. So my dad bugs me all the time. He's like, so much for quitting and never doing that again, huh, son? I said, yeah, I guess it turned out okay.
I couldn't. I've tried skating but I was a little later, I guess, like later in life. I was probably like 8 or 9, and I put on those ice skates, and I just would keep slipping and falling like on my ass, and that it hurt so much, and that I just was very discouraged. It sounds like you kind of took the pressure off, I don't know, yourself, when you're like, I don't like this, and then whatever his response was, and then all of a sudden you just start skating.
Yeah, well, I was a player for about 5 years, and then when I was 9, turning 10, I became a goalie and been a goalie ever since. I played like high-level AAA growing up, bounced around junior for a bit. I played junior like in Ontario in Canada, then back home in Manitoba. Ended up doing 1 year of college out in like BC, like on the west coast of Canada, like college hockey. And then COVID happened, and some other things in my career happened as well. And then went over to Europe for 2 years playing over in Sweden, and now here we are back in what we call the Fed Zeno in Detroit.
I played basketball when I was growing up, and I wanted to be in the NBA, but I knew, because I'm like 5'8" and just very average on all levels of speed and athletic ability. But I just in my mind, I was like, if I could just play in Europe, if I could play in Europe, as long as I could play, I'd be happy, regardless of the money situation. I was a kid, so I didn't really understand money that well at the time, but I just knew I wanted to play basketball. So it sounds like you just really love to play also.
Yeah, I mean, like we're not getting rich off this anytime soon by any means, right? By what we're paid and what we're compensated for. So I think, guys at this level, whether we're talking hockey, soccer, baseball, basketball, I'm sure all minor leagues are very similar. Like guys do it for the love of the game. I heard a story. This is actually kind of a weird one. Around the time the podcast started, this is like March, April of 21, I took the train from Vancouver back home to Winnipeg, and in the whole train of all the people to sit beside, I sit beside this guy who's playing professional minor league baseball. He's a pro pitcher, and he played in Winnipeg for the Winnipeg Goldeyes. His name was Ryan Johnson. Great guy. We had 2.5 days sitting beside each other. And I don't think for 2.5 days the conversation ever laid off outside of bedtime. But so we're chatting just about like how much he's making, the grind, all this kind of stuff. And they have guys that are living underground at the baseball park, like underneath the stadium. So like they literally live at the field, that they're doing this for the love of the game. They're not, and I mean, this dude is in economy on a train that cost, at the time of COVID, obviously prices went down a bit because nobody was taking it. But dude spending $170 to go Vancouver to Winnipeg because flying is too expensive. Like this is the definition of like you're playing because you really love doing it, not because you're getting rich anytime soon.
Yeah, that is something I really, I wouldn't necessarily understand, other than all of, at the beginning of SHEATH, I wasn't making any money, and everything I did make, I would put back into the company. And so it was just like full investment into SHEATH while kind of depriving myself of anything nice. And I still don't really buy a lot of things for myself. It's still like everything goes back into the company. I bought some crypto last year. Ooh. That didn't go very well. So I was reading this I was like really on my phone last night. I was watching some of the fights, and I was kind of just scrolling through Instagram, and I went to this page called Wealth, and it was like 7 top reasons why people get rich in their, over time. And one of the tips that really stood out to me, and I've heard it before, is it's always like, pay yourself first. And I'm of the mind where I pay myself last. I always pay myself last. So, so I commented like, well, this doesn't seem like a principle of success to me, to pay yourself first, unless you're going to take that money and then invest it in the market or something. Do you have any tips for generating wealth?
Generating wealth. I think that I think that living within your means is essential. Like for example, just like in minor pro hockey, like we know how much we're gonna make. Like I make $125 every single week, right? Like I get per diem when we're on the road, and I try my best to pocket that money, because if I can pocket that $20 they gave me for the weekend and not spend it on food, that's $20 more in my pocket. And I know it sounds like very chintzy and very like small stuff, but like over the course of a season, it adds up. And one thing that hockey's taught me, especially in the last 2 years, is that like you never know when things are going to end, right? There could be some flu that comes along and shuts everything down. It could be, the team goes bankrupt and they fold and you have nowhere to play, and now you got to find somewhere else. The league could go under. Like there's so many things that could happen. So I think that like living within your means and living humbly, I think goes a long way for just, I think you appreciate the small stuff when the big stuff comes, if you live under those circumstances. Like for example, like I don't own a vehicle like at all. So like when I'm home, I literally bike everywhere. I take public transportation with my hockey equipment. Like when I'm in Vancouver and, I start skating again in the summer, with my bag over my shoulder, my pads and my sticks with my SHEATH underwear shirt, by the way, I've got to mention, I'm taking public transit, I'm taking a bus to the rink, and when the season comes and I live with guys who drive me to the rink, or I have a team bus that, gives me frostbite and drops me off at the rink, I appreciate that because I lived, I guess, less than that previously.
We have a warehouse. I'll show you. I don't know if you've seen it, but
oh, that's the warehouse. That's the SHEATH headquarters.
Yeah, basically. But it's in a shopping center, and we have a church right next to us, and they're singing some church music.
Okay,
which is nice. Do you?
Dave just texted me. Dave says hi, by the way.
Oh, hi, Dave. Thank you. I appreciate both of you promoting SHEATH. It's really, I can't thank you enough. Because, without guys like you to help legitimize the brand, it would just be me saying it's good underwear, but having, I like to say badass motherfuckers that also like promote SHEATH for us. It makes other people stop and look. So
badass motherfuckers that also wear some badass underwear, and it feels great in your dick and balls.
That'll be a clip. I'll make that a clip. I messed up the camera. Yeah. So you were talking about like living within your means and not having a car. That's pretty interesting. So you just like Uber around as needed?
Not even. To be honest with you, my first experience in Sweden, this actually kind of like was like a life-changing moment. So when I got to Germany on the flight over from North America, the head coach of the team was supposed to come like pick me and my roommate at the time up, like from the airport. And he texted me when I got to Germany that, hey, like there's no ride for you. You're gonna have to find your own way. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to a continent and a country I've never been. I don't speak the language. I've also been up for like 24 hours transiting. I'm exhausted. I'm not gonna have any phone service. This is gonna be an endeavor. And thank God. I put a burner out on Instagram, was like, hey, can anybody want to help? And some guy came to pick me up from the airport, funny enough, and then drive me to where I needed to be.
Like a fan or something?
Literally.
Wow, that's really cool.
Still friends with him to this day. We call him Big Save Dave because he saves the day. That was kind of the joke on that one. But so my roommate, he came in at a different time, and he wasn't there to get picked up. So he had to like take his his 13 suitcases, because he doesn't travel lightly by any means, his hockey bag and his sticks, from the Stockholm Arlanda airport to the transit station, all the way down about an hour and a bit to the Flemingsberg train depot, walk across the depot to the bus station, and then bus to where we lived, and then walk up the hill to the house. And this took him about 8 hours. Because he made a couple mistakes, put the wrong address in, and I remember I'm sitting at the house, having a coffee after a long day, and he's walking up the hill to the front of the steps, and I can see him, and I just like, oh my God, Swedes! I haven't seen him since we played college hockey together, and he walks in the door, and I said to him, I says, good to see you. Like, what took you so long? I got smart ass calling, I knew he was gonna snap on me, and he says, you will not fucking believe what I've been through today. And I was like, I actually do. And I'm glad I didn't have to do it with you. So that endeavor kind of opened my mind up to like, I have a feeling we're gonna be doing a lot of like public transportation, like busing to hockey, taking the train to hockey, all this kind of stuff. And it got to a point where like we were having road games like 2 hours away, where, because I guess nobody wanted to give me and Sweens a ride, where they're like, you guys can just hop on the train and take the train down to the game and we'll pick you up at the depot. So that kind of opened my mind up to like, I may have to like take public transportation a lot more than I like to. And then when I came back to North America, I was just more open-minded to like, I'll just take my gear, I'll hop on the bus, I'll go where I need to go, I'll hop on the train, I go where I need to go. And as long as I get there, it doesn't really matter. I just have to, plan out a little bit more different times. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a little bit more time consuming, but it's there for a reason, and people do use it, and you wonder like who's using it, and it's minor league hockey players or whatever.
I think it makes you appreciate too, like the journey getting there. It makes you appreciate when you get there more, and also like it's not like I'm in a car driving. I'm focused. I'm on the road. I'm like sitting on the bus. I'm sitting on the train, and I'm reflecting on like the journey that I'm on, or that I'm the destination I'm going to.
That's what I would want to do. Like if I was in New York or something, and I would take public transportation, you could be meditating, maybe not on the train, but maybe you could have your laptop, you could be working, because when you're driving, obviously you have to have your full attention on the road for the most part, if you're not texting.
Wink, 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 wink.
Exactly. Yeah. I have a Tesla, and
I'm jealous.
That's one of the luxuries that we do have. My wife, well, I was going to get one, and then she wanted one, so we were both going to get one, and then she ended up getting one, and I didn't get one. So
that's kind of like my dream car. Is like get a Tesla. I think it'd be really cool. But I do have a bike, like I mentioned, and I bike everywhere, like when I'm home in Canada. And I guess through like vlogging my endeavors in Europe to like where I share that I don't have a vehicle. I bike everywhere, or I get a ride to hockey or whatever. I had this guy reach out on Instagram this summer and said, "Hey, I also live in Winnipeg. If I welded you and made you like a trailer for your bike, for your gear, would you use it?" And I was like, "Of course I will. Then I don't have to hassle somebody for a ride. I can skate more. It's great. I'll be, carrying this massive trailer on the back of my bike when I go across the intersections, but like I'll do it." And we talked about specifics. I sent him pictures of my axle, everything. He had everything he needed, and then I never heard back. So I'm kind of hoping that I hear back sometime, maybe this summer, and get that trailer.
Hope he's okay. Maybe he got hit by a train or something.
Well, he finishes the bike trailer.
Hopefully he gets it taken care of for you. So how often are you going overseas to play, and why?
So the overseas started as
Winnipeg is in Canada. That's not
people forget about Canada sometimes for good reason. So the first reason that I went to Sweden my first year was because obviously COVID shut everything down like March, and the agent I had at the time, we got an offer very beginning of April in Sweden, and this agent says to me, "I don't think we should sign this. I think we can get better offers. I think if we're patient, we'll get a really good offer. COVID's going to be gone in like a month or two." And I was like, "I don't know, man." He called me a nut, but I was like, "I don't think this shit's going anywhere. I think, knowing what I know, opportunities are very hard to find in life, and especially in the hockey market. We should just sign it, get a deal done. It's squared away. And worst case, we call the guy up in August and say, 'I ain't coming.' That sounds like a good idea to me." And so that's exactly what we did. And so we signed the deal, trying to get a deal to finish my college education. Nothing, no offers. Like all the universities were shut down, let alone playing hockey. North American pro hockey, same situation. So end of August, we're like, this isn't a bad idea. I have somewhere to play. And they ended up putting a ban on North American imports coming over to Europe because so many guys were trying to come over because they couldn't play anywhere. So I went to Europe as a mistake, I guess, if you want to call it that, or by accident, because I really didn't want to go. Like I had an idea in my head of like what Sweden and Europe was going to be like, and I really didn't want to do it. But damn it, am I glad that I did. Like it was life changing, and I would say now Sweden is like my favorite place on earth. And so I played in Stockholm my first year, Gothenburg-ish my second year. Both were just outside of Stockholm and Gothenburg. And downtown Gothenburg, Sweden has got to be my favorite place on this planet. Period. Like just I love it so much.
Why? Tell me about it.
So I think that, and this is obviously a lot of opinion based, but I think that in North America, Canada, and the U.S., like we're taught to think that like, we're the greatest. There is nothing greater than the United States or Canada to an extent. And there's a very almost like a pissing contest in society. Like everybody's trying to one up each other. Everybody's very social. And I think that it breeds like a very negative environment for a lot of people, that like this like rat race, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, definitely.
As opposed to in Scandinavia, where they had like jokes, like billboards making fun of COVID at the beginning of the pandemic, because Sweden never shut down. Everything was wide open.
That's right. Yeah.
And so they've had a thing in Sweden where they've been social distancing for tens of thousands of years because Swedes keep to themselves. So they have like billboards that are saying stay 6 feet away, and Swedes would make fun of it, be like, well, that's getting closer. We've been staying 7 feet away for 10,000 years. Now you want us to be 6 feet away. So like they're very hard done by all this kind of stuff. So they keep to themselves. They don't really socialize with each other or talk to each other. Everybody minds their own business, but I kind of like, and it makes you appreciate that interaction you have with somebody that much more, because it's not, hey, how's it going? Good. How are you? I'm okay. And like these mindless conversations. Like every time you speak to somebody, there's a purpose, and you have a good conversation, which I really like.
Yeah.
And because I think everybody's not having that pissing contest with one another, and everybody's minding their own business, they have a word for it in Sweden. I can't remember what it is. But it's basically any success you have. If you're rich, if your business is taking off, whatever, like you keep it to yourself, nobody cares. And they have another term in Sweden called fika, which is basically you go for coffee with somebody, or you go for like a pastry with somebody, and that is your opportunity to speak to somebody, because you mind your own business the rest of the day. You get a cup of joe, you get a hot tea, you get a kanelbulle, which is like a Swedish cinnamon bun. It's my favorite pastry. Or the vanilla bulle also is fantastic. And you sit down, you have a conversation, and that's it. And just it's a lot slower paced world. It's not so like helter skelter, and just everything about it. I like the vibe, and it's more my fit. And
nice.
Back to Winnipeg, and then going back to Sweden again, kind of sunk into me that okay, I think I'm a Swede. I want to be a Swede, but it's so far away, and it's hard to get offers there every single year for hockey. So
how did you transition back then? Did the Detroit or Motor City Rockers see you playing, over there, and like try to convince you to come back, or did your contract end? What happened?
Yeah, so in minor pro, well, in pro in general, everything outside of the NHL, everything is like a year-to-year contract.
Okay.
So I'm signed this year. Next year, I'm not. We have to get something in the works. And a lot of it comes down to like your agent. So like the agent that I had at the time, when I first signed in Sweden, I no longer have that agent. I have a new agent, and my new agent got me my second team in Sweden. Things have been going very well ever since then. In pro hockey, there's certain like import bans that come into place every now and then, or like rules and stuff. So for example, like this year they changed everything in Sweden where like teams had to apply for all the visa work, all the import cards, as opposed to like you doing it, more financial cost up front. And they said that it was an attempt to clean up Swedish hockey, but it's really trying to get the imports out and bring in more Swedish people, which from their perspective makes sense. From my perspective, I'm upset by it. So
right.
It was a lot harder to find like a good fit for an offer in Sweden, because it would be significantly cheaper for them to bring in a European than to bring in me. And so basically we kind of knew when the season ended that like if there wasn't a deal in place when I left, I was probably going to have to go back to North America. And then the Motor City Rockers are a brand new team for this year. They're a new expansion team.
Okay.
And so I got signed end of June. The expansion draft was beginning of June. And that was basically that. So I don't know what's going to happen next year. I know there's 2 new expansion teams coming into the league next year, one in Louisiana, one in Virginia. I do love Scandinavia. I love Europe. I love Sweden. I also love Norway. I went to Norway for a tryout right before Christmas. That team got shut down for COVID as well. So Scandinavia as a whole, I love it all. But I told my agent, I said, if you don't get me back to a place that I enjoy next year, you're fired. So
yeah, I work with a lot of agents and for like podcasters and mostly, I guess that's in fighters. A lot of fighters. I don't know. I guess they take they get the opportunities they can for their clients, but if it's not available, I guess you can only work with what you have. I've been to Germany. I had an overnight in Germany on my way to Iraq for the first time. Probably one of the best nights of my life, actually, because we weren't supposed to stay there, and we had a layover, so we had to go to a hotel. Like my whole unit, who thought we were going to war for the first time to die potentially, so they had a bar at the hotel, and I had this huge beer. It was like this big, and I remember it was, it felt like potentially the last night of my life, and it was very memorable hanging with my unit and drinking before going to war. It was pretty badass. But aside from that, I went to Iceland, which was pretty cool. Have you been to Iceland?
I have not.
Reykjavik. It was nice. It was everything is kind of, Americanized, at least in Iceland. The only other place I went to was Kuwait and Iraq, and those were less civilized, I guess, from because we were just in like tent cities in the desert. But
thank you for your service, by the way. I knew previously before working with you, you were in the U.S. Army, and that's how SHEATH kind of came to be. But Dave says it all the time. I haven't had a chance, but thank you for your service.
You're too kind. I was a lot of people join the military because they don't have any other options, and
they need money.
Yeah, and they were offering bonuses at the time. I mean, I had all this college debt plus personal debt, and I was in like a marriage that wasn't going terribly well, and they were offering these signing bonuses, and it was just, I don't know, it was kind of like the perfect storm and plus I'm pretty patriotic, but also I see the flaws, especially having been in the Army and seeing like all the waste that goes on, and thinking I was going over there to liberate the Iraqis, when now I'm more on the opinion that we were going there for some other agenda, like oil reserves and the military industrial complex and the war machine, and it's all like for profit and stuff. And I get it. We're all human. Everybody's got to make their money. And if you're in that business, then you're promoting wars probably. But I'm way more skeptical now. I was so naive when I was 25. And you're only like 26, or how old are you?
Yep, 26. I'm a 96.
Yeah, I graduated in 96, and then I joined the Army at 26. So I was kind of late for that, because a lot of, most of them were like 18, 19, but I had hit a dead end, and I'm really glad I joined. I loved it. I loved the Army, the challenging. It helped me turn into, like a man. I was doing just a lot of, I had been arrested multiple times as a young adult, and I actually had to get a waiver to get in the Army because of my criminal record, but they were taking anyone. So it was also a really good time for me because I had some like felony type charges, and they wouldn't have let me in otherwise. I had tried to go in before, and they rejected me, but because we were in the middle of a war and it's tougher to get people to join, they let me in.
And then SHEATH came to be, so everything kind of worked out quite nicely.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't exist if I hadn't joined, and plus it was just fun. I imagine maybe playing a sport is similar. You're getting to like compete against your peers and test yourself and push yourself further than probably you ever thought you could by yourself anyways. How are the practices? Do they like really get crazy on you guys, or is it like left up to you to be a self-starter and push yourself?
Kind of a little bit of both. Like, this is like the first year I played for a team where practices were over an hour. Like, usually everywhere I played, like college, like pro in Europe, they're like an hour. I'd say like an hour in and out done.
Whoa.
But like this year we're doing like an hour and a half. A couple times we've gone 2 hours, and like that's a lot of ice time.
Really? So, okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, they're very intense. They're very fast paced. Guys are competing. I'm a big tall dude who's kind of broken down physically. So it's not my favorite setup, shall we say? But also at the same time, like, I'm playing professional hockey for a living. Like, it doesn't like it's better than working a day job. So yeah, like, you take the good with the bad.
Yeah, but you're like multitasking. You're doing a podcast and the vlog, so you see the future, and you're gonna have to, I guess, parlay yourself like kind of out of that at some point, unless you get involved in like coaching or like sports announcing, because you have a really good voice.
Oh, thank you very much
for this. And so, I mean, like, what else? How do you see yourself transitioning out of hockey?
Well, like, when I started doing my YouTube videos, my goal was to help people. I always wanted to help people, because when I became a goalie when I was 10, My dad never played hockey. There was no like firsthand experience. So everything we did, or like previous experience, so everything we learned was like firsthand, like our mistakes. So like I wanted to help people not make the mistakes of like whether we're talking about like buying the wrong sticks, going into the wrong goalie camps, working with the wrong coaches, listening to the wrong information. I was like, I'm 20 at the time. I'm 18, whatever. I'll share my experience. You can listen to it. You can not listen to it. But my goal is to constantly help people. And that's the way to, and it still is to this day. Like I share my life in the Fed because people don't believe that like this kind of shit happens. And it's like, well, here's the video evidence. It happens. Right. So like my goal has always been to help people. I don't know how I would do that post career. I don't like the idea of coaching because I think that there's like so many like scammy coaches out there that just are looking for a quick buck and not actually like to help people.
Interesting.
I think that something in like the media aspect of things would do well. That's why I like the idea of like a podcast, because like I have control over it. I can talk about things that I'm passionate about. It's not mainstream. It's just genuine passion, having a conversation. Obviously having, you know, Wheels do it with me has been game changing for the podcast, as we talked about earlier. The vlog will die whenever I do retire, because obviously you can't vlog pro hockey if you're not playing it. So that's kind of a little bit of a problem. But I don't know. I didn't think I'd be doing YouTube full time 6-7 years ago, and I am. I didn't think I'd be doing a podcast period 2 years ago, and here we are. So the landscape's constantly changing. I don't know what's going to come up when I retire. I think I have about 3 to 5 more good years left of hockey before I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, maybe it's time to move on. Obviously, my woman's kind of pushed me for like, hey, 3 years, that's it. And I'm like, okay, I could see 3 years, maybe 5. We'll see, but I don't know. We'll see when the time comes what I want to do. But I definitely want to do something like media wise, or definitely not mainstream, because I think the mainstream hockey is just so just oversaturated. It's just kind of bullshit, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean that. Yeah, I like that you're starting now, and you seem to have a gift for it and a passion for it, like this podcasting and vlogging. And I think you could probably continue to vlog. It would just transition to life after hockey and the story of Travis and what you have going on.
Here's my fiance, and here's our new cat named Carl. I'm not playing hockey anymore. I hope you enjoy.
Carl, your fiance.
Yeah, she wants to name the cat Carl. Well, we're planning on getting a cat later this, or I guess earlier in 20 or 23, and she wants to name it Carl, and I was like, I like that name. That's cool. So I think we're gonna get a cat named Carl.
That's exciting. You have that to look forward to. And yeah, I mean, cats are really big on the internet, you know.
Yeah, I'm a big cat person. Are you a cat person or you a dog person?
I'm a dog person, but only because I'm allergic to cats, and I have been my whole life. So we have 3 dogs and 8 chickens and no cats. But I do
lot of
like
scrambled eggs.
Yeah, I get a lot. I eat an egg every day. I love my eggs. There's something, you know, it might be just mental, but about like getting the eggs fresh, as opposed to, I don't know how long they sit on the shelf at the supermarket, but I do, you know, you want to get vegetables fresh from your garden and or whatever, pick an apple off a tree. There's supposedly more like life force energy in the freshness rather than if it's been sitting on the shelf for a while. Do you live with a group of other hockey players now? Yeah,
so they've had me bounce around a few places. So like when I came here this year, our goalie coach, I was living at his guest house for about 2 months. And then recently they moved me to one of the 2 hockey houses they have with 4 dudes. There was no space, so I slept on the couch for about a week and a bit. And then they moved me to a different place, which was supposed to have a bedroom, but it was only me sleeping on a couch. So then I said, you know what, I'm coming back. So I came back here. And then the day that I came back here, also like guys got called up, so bedrooms opened up. So now I have a bedroom that I share with one of our rookies. So yeah, it's a very interesting living setup. All 5 guys in this very small apartment or house.
Yeah, when we were talking about doing this a couple of months ago, I remember you talking about your internet wasn't quite set up, and I don't know why. I just assumed you were like rich and, you know, you're a professional hockey player, so you have money and you're like waiting for your new house to be built and get the internet put in.
No, I wish. That's what a lot of people don't understand too. Like, and no disrespect, but like, there's only like 5 maybe 6 pro hockey leagues in the world where you can really make good money. Like we're talking the NHL, even the AHL, guys are making $40,000 to $80,000 a year, right?
Right.
The top league in Sweden, guys make 100,000, 200,000 a year. The KHL, they make good money, but like everything else is like very like peanuts. Even like the East Coast League, which is like the 3rd highest level in North America, which is where guys get drafted, they get sent down, guys get signed, they get sent down there. They're only making like 24, maybe $3,000 a month. That's it. You go down to the SP, like the SPHL, guys make 250, 300 a week. Here, guys are making 125 a week, 200 a week.
You can't survive off that. That's insane.
So most guys, all expenses are covered. So you don't pay any money outside of your fund money.
Okay.
And that's what the salary goes towards. But in the summer, you have to do something. So guys work construction, they work concrete, they work for mom, they work for dad, they make savings, they put it aside, and they help live off that during the season. Which is why, back to our earlier conversation, that guys do this for the love of the game. It's not because we're getting rich. It's why like I have to do my podcast and my vlog, because I don't have any other money coming in.
Yeah.
Hence why.
Hell yeah. Well, no wonder you do such a good job promoting. And yeah, I hate to say that again. I was just like talking about the people with bigger audiences, but you know, like for instance, we had Sugar Sean O'Malley. We sponsored his podcast for one read, and it was the episode where Logan Paul came on, and it was like the night that Jake Paul was going to be fighting Anderson Silva, and it really got huge numbers, like 300, 400,000 downloads just on YouTube alone, or watches, views. And but he was just fucking reading it from his phone, and it was such like a bland, monotone ad read that we sent him, and he's like, oh, the SHEATH, it's got a dual pouch and all this. And I was, so I just appreciate the effort you put in. And I think you have a talent, you have a gift for this. You're way better than I am. I do this, and I've been doing it for a while, but I almost do it as a vlog for me to look back on when I'm 80, and I can be like, okay, that's what I was doing. This is kind of where I was at the time. I listened to Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Blueberries. Who's got blueberries?
Yeah, I used to listen to him more, but he kind of got me on the track to don't try to just do it, just document the journey. And so this is me like kind of documenting the journey and also exercising my conversation skills, because it is, a unique opportunity to be sitting here and talking to someone we've never formally met. And we just carried on a conversation for about an hour and seeing where it goes. And I don't usually have too many questions. I did write down some stuff. I was doing some research last night because I did a podcast with he's the owner of Gas Digital Network.
Yes. I sent Ralph a message the other day. Tell him to get back to me.
Ralph Sutton. Okay, I'll text him. He is amazing. And that was such a good podcast. And I was asking him how he prepares for his, because some people do, some people don't, I could just show up and be like, here, what's up? And I remember I did that with, it was a minor league baseball player a couple of years ago. And it's the only podcast I've ever stopped with during the podcast, because he was being so rude to me and granted, I guess I hadn't done proper research, but he was like, do you even know my name? And I was looking at my notes, and it was set up for me by one of the guys that was working for me at the time, and he was just really into baseball, and he was getting me all these baseball players. I didn't know the guy. I didn't know who he was, but I did do some research, but he was just kind of being a super prick about it. But back to Ralph Sutton, he told me he'll watch 10 hours of somebody's podcast or listen to their music, and really do a deep dive and research on his guest. So I did that for you. I actually found an Instagram page. It's called Travis_Rigden, and I don't know if it's you.
Probably not.
But it looked like it could be you. I was like, I was going to show you, but it's got 4 followers and like 1 post, and it's just a picture. It's like, anyways, probably not you.
There's a lot of burner accounts people make to kind of make fun of me. So sometimes I get a pretty good. Actually, I'll tell you this. This is a funny story. Maybe one we can cap off with here before we kind of get back to there. But in my early days of doing YouTube, like I've always prided myself on, like, if somebody sends me a message, they leave a comment, I always get back to somebody. I appreciate the fact that they care, whether they love me or they hate me. I don't care. I'm happy to converse with you. And in my early days of doing YouTube, I would do like 1 video a week ish, and every day or every time I would upload a video for 6 months straight. So that's 6 months. That's 24 videos. Within the first hour of posting the video, this one guy would take a screenshot of the video at some way, shape, or form, and would Photoshop it to put a cock in my mouth, in my hand, or something.
That's funny.
Within the hour, something, and be like, "Hey, didn't know you were doing this last night." And like I'm holding a stick, but then it's actually like a big veiny like dick. And he kept doing this and kept doing this and kept doing this. And I always responded to him. Always a funny guy. And then one time I was flying through Calgary, and he says, "Hey, I'm at the airport. I'll buy you lunch. Thanks for responding to all my, cock messages." And I said, "Sure." So he bought me lunch. We had a great conversation, kind of like us right now. And this is like 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. And we have this conversation. We still keep in touch to this day. Every time I drive through or come through his town, we always have lunch. We chat. Even, my girlfriend, I guess not ex-girlfriend, but previous girlfriend from a few years ago, we went and we had lunch with him. And just crazy how the world works like that. You respond to a couple messages of a dude photoshopping cock in your mouth, and you develop a friendship.
Yeah, I would be like, do you not have anything better to do with your time than, photoshopping dicks in my hand or mouth? But that is very flattering that he would take the time to do that. So, I mean, and any publicity is good publicity, they say, except for maybe what Kanye is doing.
Yeah, that may not be the best, but
maybe people they say he's a genius, and I'm like, he's really good at making beats. But this, and I was like, as soon as he was like, I'm going DEFCON 5 on the Jews, I was like, oh, this is bad. This is not going to go good. And I have a lot of Jewish friends, or at least people that I work with, and friends, and I was like, this is outrageous, and I hate cancel culture. I'm like do not agree with it unless, like you're Harvey Weinstein or something. But for the most part, if you say something inappropriate, I like that. That's kind of my style of comedy, and that I like to listen to. But this, I was like, this isn't funny. I don't know where he's going with this, but this is not going to go good. And a lot of my Jewish friends were like, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. They're more concerned with censorship in general, so he should be able to say whatever he wants to say. And yeah, he should, and I still agree with that. I just don't agree with what he's saying. And now a lot of them are coming on board. They're like, okay, yeah, he's kind of not redeeming himself in any kind of way.
Yeah, I agree.
Last thing, I know we're on time. Have you been in any fights, on the ice during a game? And
I had 2 fights in junior. Both were against players. Both times I didn't get touched once, which was quite nice. I haven't no fights in college and no fights in pro yet. We were actually working on some fighting tactics and practice the other day, but yeah.
Yeah, I heard you giving some tips about like slipping out of your pads or something, and grabbing them some kind of sort of way.
Yeah, our chest protectors as a goalie, they have like a Velcro strap that goes around the wrist, and as a goalie, like you're huge, you're like a Michelin man.
Yeah.
So I believe that if you can, before the fight, get your gloves off and undo the wrist strap, because guys, they grab you like that. If you grab me and the wrist strap is out, I can just like pull my arm completely out.
Nice.
And so now you're holding this like dummy arm, and I have a free, like legitimate hand with like no obstructions, and I can just beat the shit out of you.
But if he's wearing a helmet, then you're going to hurt your hand probably, right?
You got to avoid the helmet.
Okay, just hit him in the neck.
Hit him in the neck, body shots, whatever you can get. Just don't crack your hand on the visor or on the top of the helmet, because that will hurt.
That's your tip of the day, people. Well, Travis, I appreciate you coming on this, early. I guess it's not that early, but it's early here.
Yeah, it's noon here on the East Coast.
Yeah, and I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you supporting SHEATH or promoting SHEATH. I look forward to seeing what you have, to come in the future with your vlog and podcast. You're doing great things. So keep it up.
Thank you very much. And thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you, Travis. All right. It'll come out probably next Monday, just FYI. And
Sure.
I'm sure I'll talk to you again before that. So
Absolutely.
Okay.
I don't know if we're still going right now, but did you want to talk about our contract stuff before we go?
Let me stop it. Yeah. Well, thank you for everyone for joining another episode of the Robert Patton Global Podcast, and we'll see you next week. Peace.